You ever get the feeling like nature's just messing with scientists?
How so?
Like it's playing this giant game of hide and seek with them.
Ah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, like with this plant we're diving into today.
Right, okay.
This thing had researchers stumped for like over a century.
Really? Over a century?
Yeah, and it all starts with this parasitic plant
Oh, interesting.
called Balanophora subcupularis.
Balanophora subcupularis.
Yeah, try saying that 3 times fast.
I'll stick to calling it Balanophora for now.
Yeah, that works. So this Balanophora lives in these like dark forests.
Okay, so like deep in the understory.
Exactly. And it's on this small island in Japan.
Interesting. Island ecosystems can be really unique.
That's part of what makes this so intriguing. So it gets its nutrients, by siphoning them off from other plants.
Oh, so there's a parasite, huh?
Yep, a real botanical moocher.
But that's how it survives, right?
Exactly. So that's not even the weird part.
Oh, there's more.
Oh, yeah, so much more. For like 100 years, nobody could figure out
Figure out what?
how this thing was getting pollinated or spreading its seeds.
Whoa, seriously.
Dead serious. See, it's not like, all flashy and colorful.
Oh, to attract pollinators.
Right. It doesn't have like a sweet scent or anything.
No enticing perfumes for the bees?
So, in fact, it's kind of got this, well,
Don't leave me hanging.
it's got this kind of yeasty smell.
Yeasty. Not exactly a bouquet of roses, is it?
More like a forgotten loaf of bread in the back of the fridge.
Charming. So not exactly attracting the usual suspects like birds or bees, then.
Nope, not at all.
Oh.
So enter these dedicated scientists.
Okay, the heroes of our story.
Totally. From Kobe University.
Right, Kobe University representing.
They were like, we're going to crack this Balanophora case.
I can just imagine their detective hats on.
Right. And these guys were serious. Like 100 hours of observation.
Wow, 100 hours. Talk about dedication.
Plus, they set up all these camera traps.
Ooh, camera traps.
Mm-hmm.
Sneaky.
Yeah.
Catching those pollinators in the act.
Yeah. Ended up with tens of thousands of photos.
That's a lot of photos to sift through.
But you know what they say? The truth is out there.
And in this case, the truth was pretty unexpected, right?
You bet. They found the Balanophora had some, unusual partners.
Unusual partners. Now I'm really intrigued.
We're talking ants and camel crickets.
Ants and camel crickets. That's not who I was expecting.
Not your typical pollination crew.
Okay, let's unpack this. Ants, those tiny powerhouses, and camel crickets, those nocturnal scavengers. How are they involved?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, and one we'll definitely be diving into.
I'm all ears. Either way.
All right, so think about it, ants. They're super small.
Yeah, not exactly known for long-distance travel.
Right, especially compared to, like, bees buzzing around.
Okay, fair point. So how are they effective pollinators?
That's what's so crazy. And then there's the camel crickets.
Oh, yeah, those guys.
Yeah.
More likely to munch on, like, fallen leaves than pollinate flowers.
Exactly. More like cleanup crew than pollination specialists.
This is getting more and more unbelievable. So are they even pollinating? Or is there something else going on here?
Oh, they're pollinating. All right, and that's not even the craziest part.
Wait, there's more?
Oh, yeah, way more. They're not just pollinating the Balanophora.
What else are they doing? Don't keep me in suspense.
They're spreading its seeds, too.
Hold on, they're doing double duty. Both pollinating and dispersing the seeds.
You got it. Like a one-stop shop for the Balanophora's reproductive needs.
That's insane. So we've got these tiny ants and scavenging camel crickets pulling off 2 of the most important jobs in the plant world.
It's mind-blowing, right? Talk about an unlikely partnership.
It completely flips the script on what we thought we knew about these kinds of relationships.
Right. I mean, how are these creatures even managing to do both these things? Like, logistically speaking, how's it even possible?
All right, let's break it down step by step.
Yeah, I'm ready to get into the nitty-gritty.
First, let's tackle the pollination side of things.
Okay, so how are these ants and camel crickets actually pollinating the Balanophora?
Well, it's all about the allure of a free snack, believe it or not.
A snack. What kind of snack?
The Balanophora produces pollen and nectar.
Really? I thought we said it didn't have anything to attract pollinators.
It's not a ton, but it's enough to entice the ants and camel crickets.
Oh, I see. So they're like, ooh, free food. And the Balanophora's like, gotcha. Now spread my pollen.
Exactly. It's a pretty sneaky strategy when you think about it.
Totally. So they're munching away on this pollen and nectar.
Right, and as they're doing that, they inevitably pick up some pollen grains on their bodies.
Oh.
And then they move on to another Balanophora flower, still looking for a snack.
Oh, so carrying the pollen with them.
Yep, unknowingly transferring it from flower to flower.
It's like a miniature version of what bees do.
Exactly. Just on a much smaller, more localized scale.
Okay, that makes sense for pollination, but what about seed dispersal? Those seeds are tiny, right?
Tiny and tough.
Yeah.
But here's where things get even weirder with the camel crickets.
Weirder? How can it get weirder than ants and camel crickets pollinating a parasitic plant?
Just wait. So the Balanophora has these, like, fleshy leaves.
Leaves? I thought we were talking about flowers and seeds.
These are special leaves called bracts, and they're key to seed dispersal.
Okay, so how do bracts work?
Well, the bracts actually contain the plant's seeds.
Oh, so it's like a package deal.
Yep. And both the ants and camel crickets are drawn to these bracts.
Why? What's so special about bracts?
They're nutritious, like full of good stuff that the insects love.
So it's another snack situation.
Exactly. The ants, they'll often carry these bracts back to their nests.
Okay, so the seeds are hitching a ride with the ants.
Yep. But the camel crickets, they do something even more unexpected.
Don't tell me they eat the bracts whole.
You got it. They swallow them right down.
Whoa, seriously? How do the seeds survive that?
That's the remarkable part. The seeds are so tough and tiny.
Tough enough to survive a trip through a camel cricket's digestive system.
Yep. They pass right through, unharmed.
No way. And then what?
Then, well, the camel cricket does. What camel crickets do they wander around?
So they're basically pooping out these perfectly good seeds all over the forest.
Pretty much. It's like a mobile seed dispersal system.
It's like something out of a Dr. Seuss book.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
But it does raise a question. Why would the Balanophora go to all this trouble?
Yeah, why not just stick with the tried and true methods of pollination and seed dispersal?
It seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? But the researchers have come up with a couple of theories.
Oh, lay 'em on me. I'm dying to know what could possibly explain this.
All right, so theory number one has to do with that yeasty smell we talked about.
Wait, you mean that stinky smell might actually be a good thing?
For ants and camel crickets, it might be. They're often attracted to fermented smells.
So what we find repulsive, they find irresistible.
Exactly. It's all about perspective.
Okay, so the smell is one thing, but what about the timing? Didn't you say this Balanophora blooms at a weird time of year?
Right. It blooms in the fall when most other plants are winding down.
So not exactly prime time for pollinators.
Nope. Most bees and butterflies are less active then.
So the Balanophora is like, okay, everyone else is taking a break. Time to call in the bee team.
Something like that. By relying on ants and camel crickets, it's tapping into a niche market of pollinators and seed dispersers who are available when most others aren't.
Clever. It's like they've cornered the market on late season service. But what about the location? Didn't you say this plant is found on a small island at the edge of its usual range?
That's right, and that might be the most crucial factor in all of this.
Okay, so how does island life play into this ant and camel cricket alliance?
Well, being on an island, especially one that's kind of isolated, means there might simply be fewer of the usual pollinators and seed dispersers around.
Fewer options, huh?
Exactly. So over time, the Balanophora may have adapted to make the best of what was available.
Like, hey, we're stuck here with these guys, might as well make it work.
Right. It's a testament to the incredible adaptability of nature, finding a way to thrive even in challenging circumstances.
This whole thing is just blowing my mind. So we've got these unusual partners, the yeasty smell, the late blooming season, and the island location, all coming together to create this, like, totally unique relationship.
It's a fascinating puzzle, and we've only just begun to piece it together.
I'm hooked. Tell me more.
Well, let's take a moment to absorb all this new information before we delve deeper, shall we? I'm sure there's even more to uncover about this remarkable plant and its unlikely allies.
You're right. I need a minute to process all this, but I'm definitely ready to dive back in and learn more.
So we've been talking about this Balanophora plant and its unusual pollination strategy using ants and camel crickets.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Like, who would have thought those little guys were up to the task?
It really challenges our assumptions about these kinds of relationships, doesn't it?
Totally. I always thought of pollination and seed dispersal as, like, very separate jobs.
Right. Different specialists for each.
Exactly. Like, you've got your bees and butterflies for pollination, and then your birds and mammals spreading seeds far and wide.
The usual suspects.
Right. But to think that these tiny ants and, well, kinda clumsy camel crickets are doing both jobs for this plant, it's crazy.
It really highlights how much we still don't know about the natural world. Yeah.
Totally agree. It's like we've only scratched the surface of understanding all the amazing things happening out there.
And the connections between living things.
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked about how these ants and camel crickets are pulling off this double duty, but I'm still stuck on the why.
The why?
Yeah, like what's the evolutionary advantage for the Balanophora? Why not just stick with the classic pollinators and seed dispersers?
It's a good question, and one that the researchers have been grappling with, too.
So what do they think is going on?
Well, it seems to be a combination of factors, like we discussed before.
Right, the yeasty smell, the late blooming season, the island location, it's all kind of coming together.
Exactly. Each of those factors plays a role, but the island location might be the most significant.
Okay, so how does being on an island influence this whole relationship?
Well, think about it. Being on an island, especially one that's at the edge of the plant's normal range, means there might be fewer of the typical pollinators and seed dispersers around.
Oh, so like limited options.
Right. It's like being stuck in a potluck with only, like, potato salad left.
Not exactly the ideal situation.
Exactly. So the Balanophora may have had to adapt, make do with what was available.
Like, hey, these ants and camel crickets are all we've got. Might as well make the most of it.
So something like that. It's a classic example of evolution finding a solution to a problem.
And a pretty creative solution at that. But it also makes you think, what if things change?
Change how?
Well, like, we're seeing so much environmental change these days. Climate change, habitat loss. What if those things start to impact the Balanophora and its little partners?
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
This plant has adapted to this very specific environment and these very specific partners.
So any disruption could be, like, a big deal.
Exactly. It highlights the fragility of these ecological relationships.
It's like they've found this perfect balance, this little niche where they can all thrive. But what happens if that niche starts to disappear?
That's one of the big questions that this research raises, and one of the reasons it's so crucial to understand these interactions.
Right. It's not just about like, ooh, look at this cool plant and its weird friends. It's about understanding the bigger picture.
Exactly. The interconnectedness of ecosystems, the potential consequences of disrupting those connections.
It's like a domino effect, right? One thing changes and it can impact everything else.
And that's why this research is so valuable. It's not just about this one plant. It's about understanding the broader implications.
So you're saying this Balanophora and its unusual partners could be a kind of warning sign?
In a way, yes. It's a reminder that even the smallest, most seemingly insignificant creatures can play a vital role.
It's like, don't underestimate the little guys.
Exactly. They're often the ones holding things together.
This is giving me a whole new appreciation for the ants and camel crickets I see in my backyard. I used to just think of them as pests, but now I'm like, wait a minute, what important job are they doing?
That's the kind of thinking we need. Moving beyond our human-centric view of the world and appreciating the value of all living things.
Okay, I'm totally on board with that, but I gotta admit, I'm still a little skeptical about how effective these ants and camel crickets can be.
Skeptical how?
Well, ants are so tiny, and camel crickets, they're not exactly known for their grace and precision.
Fair enough. But remember, the researchers didn't just observe these insects. They actually did experiments to confirm they were doing the job.
Oh, right. They didn't just assume, they actually tested it.
Exactly. They wanted to be sure that the ants and camel crickets were actually pollinating and dispersing the seeds, not just visiting the plants.
So how did they do that? Did they set up some kind of, like, insect obstacle course or something?
Not quite an obstacle course, but they did get creative. To test pollination, they excluded other potential pollinators from some of the plants.
Excluded them, like put up tiny little fences?
Something like that. They wanted to see if the Balanophora could still produce seeds without the help of bees or other insects.
Okay, and what happened? Did the Balanophora manage to reproduce?
It did. The plants that were only visited by ants and camel crickets produced just as many seeds as the plants that were open to all pollinators.
Wow, so that's pretty strong evidence that those little guys were doing the job.
Right. It showed that they were capable of effectively pollinating the Balanophora.
Okay, that's pollination. But what about seed dispersal? How did they confirm that the camel crickets were actually spreading the seeds?
For that, they focused on the camel cricket specifically. They fed them bracts with seeds and then collected their, droppings.
Oh, so they were checking the camel cricket poop for seeds.
Exactly. They wanted to see if the seeds survived the trip through the digestive system.
And I'm guessing they did, otherwise we wouldn't be having this conversation.
But seriously, how many of the seeds actually made it through? It was actually a surprisingly high number. Many of the seeds passed through completely unharmed and were ready to germinate.
So the camel cricket is basically like a little fertilizer machine.
In a way, yes. The digestive process might actually help break down the seed coat, making it easier for the seed to sprout.
So it's like a win-win. The camel cricket gets a snack, and the seed gets a head start on germination.
Exactly. It's a perfect example of how coevolution can lead to these mutually beneficial relationships.
Okay, that all makes sense, but I'm still wondering why those ants and camel crickets are so drawn to the Balanophora in the first place.
Remember those bracts we talked about? The ones that contain the seed?
Yeah, they're like little seed packages.
Well, it turns out those bracts function in a similar way to something called elaiosomes.
Elaiosomes. Wait, refresh my memory. What are those again?
They're like little snacks that some plants attach to their seeds specifically for ants.
Oh, right. I remember now. They're full of fats and proteins like ant candy.
Exactly. Ants love those things, and they'll often carry seeds with elaiosomes back to their nests.
It's like the plant is bribing the ants to spread its seeds.
Pretty much. And in the case of the Balanophora, it seems that the bracts themselves are acting as elaiosomes.
So the plant is offering a 2-for-1 deal. Pollen and nectar for pollination, and nutritious bracts for seed dispersal.
Exactly. It's a pretty ingenious strategy, wouldn't you say?
Totally. It's like the Balanophora has figured out how to manipulate these insects into doing its bidding.
It's a fascinating example of how plants can manipulate their environment to attract the partners they need, even if those partners are a bit unusual.
Well, unusual is an understatement. This whole deep dive has been like a crash course in the weird and wonderful world of plant-insect interactions.
And we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to learn about these complex relationships.
I'm ready for more. What else can you tell me about this amazing plant and its unlikely allies?
Well, let's delve a bit deeper into the researchers' observations and see what other insights they uncovered about this fascinating system.
Okay, I'm all ears. Lead the way.
One of the interesting things they noticed was that the ants and camel crickets were most active on the Balanophora plants at night.
At night. Makes sense for the camel crickets. They're nocturnal, but the ants too.
It seems so. It suggests that the plant is adapted to cater to these nighttime visitors.
So it's like they've set up a little after-hours club for these insects. Come on in, the pollen and bracts are flowing.
Something like that. But how did the researchers figure out that they were most active at night? Do they have to, camp out in the forest and watch them?
I can just picture them with their flashlights, stumbling around in the dark.
Actually, they use those camera traps we talked about earlier.
Oh, right. The ones that captured all those photos.
Exactly. By analyzing the timestamps on those photos, they could tell when the ants and camel crickets were most active.
So the camera traps were like their little spies in the forest, gathering intel on the secret lives of these insects.
Pretty much. It's a great example of how technology can help us understand these complex interactions.
I love it. So night owls, check. What about the bracts themselves? Did they discover anything interesting about their structure or composition?
Oh, absolutely. They found that the bracts are not only nutritious, but they also have a slightly sticky surface.
Sticky? Why would that be helpful?
It probably helps the ants and camel crickets to grip them, make it easier to carry them away.
Oh, so it's like built-in handles. Smart. Anything else?
They also discovered that the bracts emit a faint yeasty odor, similar to the smell of the plant itself.
So even the bracts are stinky. But I guess that makes sense if it's what attracts the ants and camel crickets.
Exactly. It's all about appealing to the senses, even if those senses are a bit different from ours.
Well, this whole thing has definitely appealed to my sense of wonder. It's amazing to think about all these little details, all these adaptations coming together to create this, perfectly balanced system.
It really is. And it highlights the incredible diversity of adaptations that exist in nature.
We tend to think of pollination in terms of, flowers and bees. But this Balanophora shows us there's a whole other world of interactions happening out there.
A world that we're only just beginning to understand.
And a world that we need to protect.
Absolutely. This research has implications that go far beyond just this one plant and its unusual partners.
Okay, I'm ready to talk about the big picture, the broader implications of this research, both for our understanding of the natural world and for conservation efforts.
That's a great segue. Let's delve into those broader implications and consider what this discovery means for the future of biodiversity on our planet.
Welcome back. It feels like we've fallen down a rabbit hole with this Balanophora plant and its ant and camel cricket crew.
It's certainly been a journey of unexpected discoveries, hasn't it?
Totally. It's like this plant decided to throw out the pollination playbook and write its own rules.
And it's working. It's thriving in this unique little niche it's carved out for itself.
But it makes you wonder, what happens if that niche starts to crumble? With all the environmental changes happening,
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It highlights the vulnerability of specialized relationships like this.
Right. It's like they found this perfect balance, but it's a delicate balance, one that could easily be disrupted.
And that brings us to the bigger picture, the implications of this research for conservation.
Exactly. So let's talk about that. What can we learn from this Balanophora story that can help us protect other species and ecosystems?
I think one of the biggest takeaways is the importance of expanding our definition of what's valuable in nature.
Valuable.
Yeah, like we often focus on the charismatic megafauna, the pandas, the elephants, the big attention-grabbing creatures.
Oh, right. The ones that end up on posters and T-shirts.
Exactly. But this research shows us that even the smallest, most overlooked creatures can play a vital role in the ecosystem.
It's like don't judge a book by its cover or a species by its size.
Exactly. Those little guys, the ants, the camel crickets, they might not be glamorous, but they're keeping things running.
So it's not just about protecting individual species, it's about protecting the relationships between them, right?
Exactly. It's about understanding that interconnectedness, that web of life.
It's like if you pull one thread, the whole tapestry can unravel.
A perfect analogy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why this Balanophora research is so important. It's a reminder that we need to look beyond the obvious to appreciate the value of all species, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant.
So it's like a shift in perspective, a shift in how we view the natural world.
Exactly. It's about moving beyond our human-centric view and recognizing that every species has a role to play.
And that disrupting those roles, even unintentionally, can have ripple effects throughout the ecosystem.
Precisely. It's like that saying, everything is connected.
Okay, I'm totally on board with this holistic view of conservation, but how do we actually put it into practice? It seems like such a daunting task, you know?
It is a huge challenge, but it's not impossible. It starts with awareness, with understanding the importance of these connections.
And that's where research like this comes in, right? Shining a light on these hidden relationships, showing us what's at stake.
Exactly. We need more research like this, but we also need to make sure this knowledge reaches beyond the scientific community.
So it's not just about publishing papers in journals that nobody reads. It's about communicating these findings to the public.
Exactly. We need to find creative ways to make this information accessible and engaging, to tell stories that resonate with people.
Stories like the Balanophora and its ant and camel cricket crew. It's like a real-life fairy tale, but with a serious message about conservation.
Exactly. We need more stories like that, stories that spark curiosity, that inspire people to care about the natural world.
And maybe even motivate them to get involved, to take action to protect these amazing creatures and the ecosystems they inhabit.
Absolutely. Every action, no matter how small, can make a difference. It's the cumulative effect of millions of individual choices that will ultimately shape the future of our planet.
So what can our listeners do if they want to learn more about these fascinating relationships and how they can help protect them?
There are so many great resources out there. Organizations like the Earthsea Society, they focus on invertebrate conservation, and the Botanical Society of America. They're a great resource for learning about plants.
And don't forget about local organizations like parks, nature centers, botanical gardens. They often have volunteer opportunities and citizen science projects.
Absolutely. Citizen science is a fantastic way to get involved, to contribute to our understanding of the natural world.
I love that. It's like everyone can be a scientist no matter their background.
Exactly. Every observation, every question, every act of curiosity can bring us closer to understanding and protecting this incredible planet we call home.
Well said. I think that's a perfect note to end on. This deep dive into the world of the Balanophora subcupularis has been a real eye-opener, and I hope it's inspired our listeners to take a closer look at the natural world around them.
To appreciate the hidden connections, the unexpected partnerships, and the incredible diversity of life that makes our planet so special.
And to remember that even the smallest creatures can play a vital role in maintaining the health and balance of our ecosystems.
Because in the end, we're all connected, and the fate of one species is inextricably linked to the fate of all others.
Thanks for joining us on this fascinating journey. We hope you've enjoyed the deep dive, and we encourage you to keep exploring, keep learning, and keep marveling at the wonders of the natural world.
Because the more we understand, the better equipped we'll be to protect it.
And that's a mission worth fighting for.